Let's check this out. Is the EU sleepwalking to a federal EU?
Last week, NATO agreed to a new 5% target. And while this was generally framed as a necessary remedy to the threat from Russia and decades of underinvestment in Europe's military.
One thing I wonder about is if every NATO country spends 2%, not 5%, isn't that enough to scare off Russia? Does it really have to be 5%, man?
When you dig into the numbers, it's hard to see how most European countries can really afford it. So in this video, we're going to explain why Europe can't really afford 5%, why this makes further joint borrowing at the EU level more likely, and why history shows that further joint borrowing could well be the first step on the way to a Fed.
Not even close. Russia is way too strong. That is the first time I would actually think that's rage bait. Like, that was actually just you acting.
Federal EU.
With 5% we can fight the Martians.
Explore which world leaders are winning and which are losing every week with our podcast, The World Leader Leader. Find it on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favorite podcast.
That means now every time I stream World of Warcraft, they will try to kill me, which is so scary.
So let's start by taking a look at NATO's new 5% target. Technically speaking, the new target is split into two components. 3.5% of GDP is to be spent on core defense capabilities, and another 1.5% of GDP on quote-unquote security, broadly defined, with these targets to be met by 20...
What happened? So there was a guy today in World of Warcraft. He was a horde. And he was in front of me waving. And then he looked over to an alliance character and he said, "Follow me into the forest. Follow me, man. Don't worry about it." And he was probably a stream sniper trying to kill me.
35.
Fucking mentally ill fucker, dude.
For context, in most European NATO countries, defense...
Don't you sometimes wish, chat, I'm gonna say it open, and I don't mean it, Twitch admin, don't you sometimes wish you knew a hacker, like your dad is a hacker in the CIA, and you're like, "Dad, can you tell me who this Torn warrior is in World of Warcraft? Can I get his IP and place of residence?" Don't you sometimes wish you fucking had that, man? Oh. Okay, let's calm down.
This expenditure currently sits at about 2% of GDP, and total government spending accounts for between 40 and 50% of GDP. This means that countries will have to increase defense/security spending by about 2% of GDP over the next 10 years, representing roughly a 5% increase in overall government spending. A 5% increase in government spending might not sound like much, but most European NATO members will struggle to afford it. Many European budgets are already under strain, as evidenced by the fact...
That's why I don't get why do you agree to 5%. Didn't we years ago agree to 2% from Trump? Why suddenly 5? Where's that coming from? Who the fuck can pay for this?
That most European countries are running sizable budget deficit.
Alter, Greece, Italy, France, Belgium, Spain, Portugal. Damn, Greece. Greece is fucked, Alter. Greece is fucked.
It's on top of large outstanding debt burdens. Ultimately, this means that most European governments won't be able...
It's like when you arrive in Greece, they don't sell you fucking sunglasses, they sell you little papers with debt. You can buy this debt, you get interest rate.
...to borrow their way to the 5% target. Some politicians and commentators hope that military spending will essentially pay for itself by boosting research and development spending, which will eventually lead to productivity increases in the wider economy. But this feels somewhat optimistic, given that productivity levels have been stagnant in most developed countries since 2008. If this doesn't happen, increases in defense spending will have to be funded by either raising taxes or cutting spending elsewhere. But European governments already have the highest tax burdens in the world.
Highest tax burden in the world, but we still need more money. We still need more. Oh, we don't have enough. Also, da könnte ich mich nur bekotzen, Alter, mit den ganzen Assis, Junge.
Which again are expected to rise as populations age. Spending cuts don't look too attractive either.
Sometimes I'm scared. This is kind of yapping now. This is kind of like nothing sophisticated in data. Sometimes I'm scared that when I'm older, there's not enough workforce anymore in Germany because there's too many old people. So they will start attacking people like me, like the middle class. Oh, we can't pay for the old people anymore. We have to fuck the middle class a bit more. I feel like that's going to happen one day. Oh, there's someone at my door. There's someone at my door. One sec. It's the tax office. Like, you know, I feel like maybe one day it will happen. And I think that will be enough to tip me over the edge of leaving.
Countries are also scarred by their experience with austerity during the Eurozone crisis in the 2010s.
There was a guy at his door as saying, "I have something cool in the woods to show you."
Stunted growth and
I have to probably generally stop streaming World of Warcraft. Like, legit. Because they will try to kill me. It's kind of sad.
Fertile political ground for anti-establishment parties. In countries like France and the UK, the electorate even reacted furiously to shallow spending cuts. And few, if any, European governments have laid the political groundwork for cuts.
They can already barely afford pensions. It's 35% of government spending. Yeah. And one day they're gonna,
like this. Presumably because it doesn't have to be met until 2035, politicians haven't really warned their electorates that this 5% target will eventually require higher taxes or spending cuts. Instead, they've just blindly signed up to it, done a whole load of triumphant photo ops, and left a fiscal time bomb.
That's what I just said that 10 minutes ago. Why? Why do all of you just go, yeah, sure, let's do 5%. Sure. Zelensky looking like a giga chat, bro.
Down the tracks for their successors. This is why there's a pretty widespread suspicion.
Which one is hottest? Meloni, man. Dude, I never tried to sexualize anyone on the stream, but with Meloni, I can't really stop myself.
For their successors. This is
Orban is very alone.
Why there's
away
a pretty
from him.
Widespread suspicion that this target won't actually be met, and that it's something NATO's just signed up to temporarily appease Trump. With the
that could be. They want to just suck his dick a bit because he's annoying, and then when he's finally gone, they just
intention of giving up on it once Trump leaves office. And it's already sort of falling apart. Spain successfully carved out an exemption, and Slovakia has asked for a similar deal.
Hey, why are they getting an exemption? Because they're still recovering from the civil war? What the fuck?
But if Europe actually sticks to the target, then this could very well pave the way for a massive increase in joint EU borrowing. And that's because this is the only other way for the EU to fund significant spending increases. And it's actually more cost effective than doing it at the national level. Because the EU can...
Okay, I don't understand this stuff, but debt sharing in the EU would be cost effective.
Borrow at lower rates than the vast majority of its member states. The Commission has already taken a step in this direction with the Rearm Europe programme, which aims to issue 150 billion euros worth of new joint debt to help fund Europe's defence build-up. And it's something that Emmanuel Macron and the EU's top diplomat have been calling for a while now, only to be stonewalled.
The EU is more stable than a single country, so the EU bonds would be like rated AAA and shit like that. I kind of understand that a little tiny bit.
By more fiscally conservative member states.
Will also be a nice step to confederation, yeah.
But this was before the new 5% target, when most European countries thought that rebuilding their national defences meant pushing defence spending slightly above...
Imagine your job is building ammo boxes, kind of cool.
...of 2% of GDP to maybe 3%
I always thought ammo smells
maximum.
Good. It smells good.
Furthermore, the so-called Frugal Four, Denmark, Sweden, Austria and the Netherlands, the 4 EU member states that have been historically the most staunch opponents of joint borrowing, don't really exist anymore. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen explicitly disavowed the group last month when she said that she'd support an increase in EU borrowing to fund Europe's defence build-up. Austria is also mired in a brutal economic crisis, now entering its third year of recession, which means that it won't be able to fund significant increases in defence spending without European help. Sweden will also be more open to joint EU borrowing if it's spent on defence, given that it's one of Europe's biggest defence exporters. And that just leaves the Netherlands, and given their domestic political dysfunction, they'll probably struggle to mount a challenge by themselves. Senior finance ministry officials from Sweden, Denmark and the Netherlands also
The problem is if you would ever make an EU debt, the conservatives and right-wingers will market that really badly. What? Now you have to pay for the Greeks? Vote for me. They would probably easily industrialize this
attended
shit.
a secret gathering in March to discuss the prospect of creating a supranational bank, specifically for the purpose of joint defence procurement, which suggests that they're open to a fiscal union if it's cost effective. And, well, history suggests that this could well be the first step to a deeper political union.
Macron serving for over 11 years, so much democracy. Dumb comment, terrible. You should slap yourself in the face, please. World War III. I will ban you until you send me a picture of you slapping yourself in the face on Discord. You're banned until you slap yourself in the face.
Union. Many of the great federal states we know today were created because some crisis forced a politically weak central authority to step in as a borrower of last resort, with the process of later repaying these debts giving the central authority more political power and eventually paving the way for a federal state. At America's founding in 1776, for instance, the federal government, the then Continental Congress, had no powers of taxation and, like the EU today, relied entirely on contributions from member states. Americans didn't like the idea of a strong central government. But during the War of Independence, the Continental Congress had to step in as a borrower of last resort.
I will not show you're slapping yourself on stream. It's just
and then it had to assume tax-raising powers to pay off these debts, paving the way for a political union. Similarly, before the First World War, Germany was a patchwork of at least semi-independent states. And the Reich, essentially the federal government, had limited tax-raising powers, mostly involving tariffs.
Thank you.
The First World War then forced the Reich to step in as a borrower of last resort, and then assume the power of direct taxation in the interwar years.
I'm not listening anymore.
In short, a weak central authority takes on debt during a time of crisis, and then after the crisis, they assume tax-raising powers in order to pay back those debts, which the EU doesn't currently have. And this essentially creates a new unified state. We're not saying that this is definitely going to happen. Rather, the point we're trying to make is that the EU's decision to step in as a borrower of last resort follows a well-worn historical pattern that usually ends in deeper political union. To some extent, this is how the EU has always worked, with successive crises pushing the continent towards the ever-closer union originally envisioned by the Treaty of Rome. All of this plays into a broader feeling of chaos in the world.
That makes sense though. The more you have crisis, the more they come together. So we kind of need crisis in a weird way, like Trump.
She slipped through my fingers like sand. Heard that she had a man. Now I'm just sitting here sad. Oh well, ship sail. She slipped through my fingers like sand.